Hello, this is Kelly Goen, and this is my energy source presentation for biogas from farm waste in Switzerland. Let's start by answering the question, what is biogas? Well, biomass is an all-encompassing term for organic material that can be converted to energy. And there are several different types of organic materials that can be used as feeder material depending on the needs of the particular location. As you can see in the photo on the slide, there are several options to be used. Organic waste, such as expired groceries, production residues, slaughterhouse waste, and green bins are one option. Dried sewage sludge is another option from wastewater treatment facilities. You can use manure and slurry, which is watered down manure, from livestock, including cows, pigs, and chicken, and also renewable raw materials. These materials will be location sensitive depending on the crop from the local areas. Maize, sugarcane, and beets are a couple of examples. Now, it's important to remember that due to the first law of thermodynamics, all of the organic material has energy. In particular, solar energy, since the sun provided the initial energy to enable the plants to grow, and in the case of the manure and similar inputs, nourish the animals that produce the said manure. And that energy can then be converted to other forms of energy. So now that we know what biogas is, we can look at how you go about making it. Here is a rather simplistic diagram of the biogas production process. If you're interested in a more in-depth look at the process, I've provided a link to a fantastic video that's about 12 minutes long and details the process from start to finish, including different processes depending on the types of products that wish to be produced. So, beginning at the inputs, as I mentioned in the previous slide, this can be all sorts of organic material. Most times there are combinations of materials used in these plants. The input, or substrate, is fed into the fermenter or digester marked number 4 on the diagram. The digester is a sealed building where the process will take place under anaerobic conditions, meaning no light, no oxygen. The temperature inside the digester is controlled to keep the substrate at a constant temperature. The bacteria breaks down the substrate to release biogas. Methane is its main component. The gas is captured above the substrate in a domed roof area. The residue from this process is collected in a storage tank, number 5. These residues can either be used as a liquid fertilizer, or they can be further dried to produce a compost type of fertilizer. One added benefit of this fertilizer over traditional spraying of slurry on fields is a dramatic reduction of smell. Now, going back to point 8 on the diagram, the gas capture. The gas has a couple options at this point. In the first, the gas can be piped into a combined heat and power plant, number 9, where it can be burned to produce electricity that can be fed into the power grid and also heat, which can be used depending on the output to heat buildings, stables, greenhouses, do drying, and other such uses. But there is another option if heat and electricity are not the desired outputs. You can further process the biogas to increase the methane content, making it natural gas quality. When the methane content reaches about 97 to 99%, the new product is officially called biomethane. It can be stored in tanks and pipelines that feed directly into the natural gas system, to be used by homes and businesses or in any gas filling stations. Biogas is really everywhere in Switzerland in one form or another. According to the German Energy Agency, I found that there were 140 plants that are processing agricultural biomass and biowaste, and 460 sewage gas facilities. In 2010, 860 gigawatt hours of energy were derived from biogas. Now, the preferred substrates in Switzerland are agricultural residues and biowastes. In addition, there are at least 17 biomethane operations. These are pinned on this map that you'll see, with 2 particular plants, Ormelingen and Inville, marked with red stars. Of these, at least 15 are directly connected to the gas grid. The primary use of biomethane is for vehicle fuel, although home heating appliances also utilize it. As I pointed out on the last slide in the map, Here are pictures of the two plants, Ormelingen to the top and Enville on the bottom. Now, Ormelingen's Biopower Anlage facility was built in 2008. It's an advanced high solids green waste system. The substrates it deals with are cattle slurry, cattle and chicken dung, trimmings, organic waste, and waste from food processing. It handles 8,000 tons of substrates per year. It was designed to be placed in an industrial park inside of a community, so therefore it needed special consideration for odor control. The way they deal with this is by unloading enclosed buildings with special bioscrubbers used on all of the exhaust. However, the location allows it to operate with greater efficiencies, with utilization of heat and the power to the nearby community, along with the abundance of inputs available close by. The plant exports over 3.6 megawatts of renewable energy per year, which is enough electricity to supply 450 houses and heat 130 houses per year. Now on the bottom, the Enville plant began construction in 2007 and became operational in January of 2009. It has been through 2 expansions since. This plant operates outside of Lucerne, where livestock production is abundant. Also, the municipality collects biomass waste separately, making it ideal for this plant. The plant has a capacity to handle 61,000 tons per year. It produces biogas with an energy content of 22 gigawatt hours per year and states that the carbon dioxide reduction is 3,000 tons per year from this plant. Now moving on to some of the implications of Swiss biogas, I'll begin with the socio-political implications. Some pros. Biogas is a carbon neutral source of energy, and it will help meet the Swiss energy goals. They made a choice to discontinue the use of nuclear energy at the end of the current facility's operations, which will require other electricity generation to increase in order to bridge that gap. Domestic production also allows for increased energy independence on a national scale to regional and local scales. Political support measures are in place. There are cost-covering feed-in tariffs for plants commissioned after the 1st of January 2006 or that have been updated to meet those standards. Now, the requirements for compensation state that the system must reach a minimum electrical efficiency and that the heat demand of the facility must be covered by waste heat from the operation itself or the use of other renewable energy. Now, for the biogas plant's design of the feed-in tariffs, they will receive a basic salary guaranteeing the cost recovery price of electricity over 20 years. They can also receive an agricultural bonus when the non-agricultural substrates are below 20%. And there's a heat bonus that's available if at least 20% of the heat that the facility produces is used externally. And then there's this additional funding available at the cantonal level. The Biogas Compensation Fund has been set up by the Swiss gas industry and uses the fund to promote domestic gas production. Their goal is to supply the grid with 300 million kilowatt hours of biogas within 6 years. This is an equivalent of 30 million liters of fuel with an estimated savings of 70,000 tons of carbon dioxide annually. Now, biogas as a vehicle fuel is exempt from the mineral oil tax, providing a price break incentive for utilization of this fuel. There's also several acknowledgments, such as being named an energy city, that brings with them additional means of support to further incentivize the expansion of renewable technologies. I've provided a link right here that you can visit to see a list of all of the energy cities. 3 that I found are Interlaken, Lucerne, which says that it's a gold city, and Zurich, which is also a gold city. Now, there are also some cons to discuss. The feed-in tariffs and the CO2 certificates have allowed for a breakthrough of these energies. However, they are also accused of propping them up with government funds, requiring them for a guarantee of sustainability and profitability. Also, extensive conditions are in place to control the location and building of biogas facilities. There's the Spatial Planning Act, which considers zoning dependent on the substrate materials that will be used, and fertilizer ordinances that regulate the composition of the digestate and its use. There's increased competition in the biogas and renewable energy sector from the incentives, which have led to issues concerning availability of inputs and profitability of the operations themselves. Moving on to the environmental implications of biogas, some pros. Biogas is a renewable energy source, and depending on the source, biogas will either be called low carbon or often carbon neutral. Either classification, biogas is cleaner than fossil fuel alternatives. It creates an energy from what otherwise would have been a waste product. Locally produced energy cuts down on transmission and distribution losses that are incurred when energy must travel long distances. It also creates a closed-loop nutrient cycle that is important in preserving the quality of the surrounding farmlands in the case of smaller agricultural operations. Switzerland is also adamantly against the use of energy crops, with feed-in tariffs even punishing those that use them. They do not agree with using farmland for energy production rather than food products. This is a good perspective because issues like deforestation and producing energy rather than feeding people becomes major issues with the use of energy crops. However, there are some cons to discuss. Some methane and carbon dioxide can leak from the process. However, it is also important to note that the amount of methane emissions from an open pit manure storage would be considerably higher than that which might escape during the production. A constant source of feedstock is necessary to keep these processes going. This is sometimes a problem for biogas facilities and one of the most important considerations. If they need to bring in outside inputs, feedstock transport can contribute to higher emissions. And wastewater facilities producing biogas are required to burn the dried slurry. If these facilities use co-substrates such as the green wastes, the burning prevents the valuable nutrients in those substrates to be returned to the land in the fertilizer use. Economic implications to consider. Some pros, according to the European Renewable Energy Council, in 2009, the renewable energy sources industry was one of the fastest growing sectors in Europe, employing more than 450,000 people. It promotes the regional economy, and the inputs are generally low cost or free, especially in the case of manure. Some cons. With the green bin waste, there's another source of revenue for biogas plants. However, municipalities would pay a disposal fee to the plants to dispose of these wastes. With the increase in facilities, the demand for this waste has increased significantly. This has led to far lower revenues, and in some cases, even facilities that have to pay for these inputs. The startup of these processes are very expensive, and they often rely on assistance from government or the industry to fund projects. And the current infrastructure is set up in favor of fossil fuel technology. Investments are necessary in order to update the infrastructure towards renewable technology. Last thing I'd like to take a look at is biogas in the United States. I found these two recent articles highlighting biogas. On the top, California UPS in Sacramento, Fresno, and Los Angeles will be using biomethane to power its trucking fleet. The initiative shows that renewable natural gas can present us with new viable alternatives to traditional fossil fuels. And below that, Millennium Farms in Pocomoke City, Maryland, is a pilot program using anaerobic digesters to help solve problems with nutrient control in chicken manure. Phosphorus in the manure is especially a problem in the area with its effects on the Chesapeake Bay. Additionally, the biogas produces enough energy through the 3 digesters to power themselves along with the electricity for the 50-acre farm. It's one of 5 poultry waste systems in the U.S., but if successful, it could lead to many more. You'll see 3 different maps at the bottom of the slide. These point out the operational biogas systems within the United States. On the left in red are agricultural systems. The middle in yellow are landfill systems that use methane capture from the landfill to produce biogas. And on the right in blue are wastewater systems. As you can see, these are the most utilized types of systems within the U.S. So as you can see, biogas is here in some capacity, but there is still significant room for the expansion of this technology.